on this. Okay, and there's somebody with an iPhone. If you can just mute for right now, that would be super. We don't want to pick up any background noise. All right, so today is mold. We're talking about the mold. The number of a lot of people have mold, and we're going to talk about the devastating effects that it has on our bodies, where we see mold, what it does to us, and where you're getting exposed to it. We'll also go over a brand new test that also has some bonuses in it, because it not only measures the mold in your body, but it also measures the environmental toxins and the heavy metals. So it's a fabulous test that just came out, and we are using that to great success. So this type of test is not the normal test that a doctor would run on you. It is not a typical blood draw test normally that I talk about. It's completely different from that. And it actually tests the amount of mold that is growing in your body. So yeah, mold can grow in your body. Not a great thing. And we have a story of a mold survivor who actually had mold in her lungs. And she went into a coma because of that for 4 months. And I'm going to also let you in on a secret of how I suspect when a client has been exposed to mold and these toxins, and to help you find out if that's perhaps what's going on with you. By the end of our time together, you're going to learn that what you can finally do to end the symptoms that have basically held you captured. And we want to put you on that journey from being unhealthy to healthy. So today I'm going to be in a PowerPoint, which I normally don't do, but in that PowerPoint, I won't be able to look at the chat box, but I do want you to put questions in there if you do have questions, so we can go over them. Or actually, you could hold your questions to the end of the program, and then we can, get back online and answer questions there. I'll spend the last, 30 minutes or so going over questions. All righty. So let's get into that fabulous okay. And I think so mold. It's the culprit we're going over today, and it's the biggest reason why I have so many people come to me with health problems, and mold is actually causing these health problems. And Western medicine is really not trained in this world. So you have to look at this in a different way. It happens, a lot of people go through a lot of different modalities. They go through treatment modalities, they do tests, they cut out foods, they really are looking for that missing piece. And that missing piece is oftentimes mold. So you can just understand that everything that you do, you can do it right, and yet you're still running into a wall. And mold is that reason. If you have this, if this is something that's going on with you, I have a couple of stories that might, looking at these experiences that other people have, it just really shines the light. So one of those things is this lady that I was talking to. She's like in her 50s. She's one of those high-powered, high-functioning CEOs. And just one day she just crashed almost overnight. It was that fast. And she did all the treatments that she could find, everything. She went to the doctors. They tried to give her all these different things, and she just could not figure out what was going on with her. She just was not recovering. So I asked her, have you ever been, or do you think you're, exposed to mold? And she said no, but she went home and she found out that she was actually, mold was growing beneath her bed. She had it in her bedroom, so underneath the floor of her bed. So no matter what she did, she was always going to have this toxic mold environment. And she's not the only one. I've had lots of people come to me with these different kinds of conversations, and they stem around something like this. They say to me that they've gotten their blood work back, they've gone to the doctor, they can't see anything wrong with the blood work. I've gone over the blood work with them and everything looks great, but they still feel lost and helpless. And they have fatigue, and it's excruciating. And they know something isn't right, and they feel like they're walking up a steep uphill battle, and no one seems to know what's going on with them. And they're like, I know this is not in my head. I know that there's something going on. So help. So I literally had a handful of messages around the same exact topic last summer. And I thought to myself, you know, we really need to do a mold program and figure out what is going on. Why are these people running into these dead ends over and over and over again, not realizing that probably their environment or something in their body is playing havoc, and they're exposed to either mold or they have something else going on in their body that's causing these problems. So one of these women that I was messaging back and forth with, I said, you know, do you have mold, or have you ever been exposed to mold? And she's like, yeah, I go to work every day and there's mold there. And her biggest complaint was chronic fatigue. So she was a mom of 3. She wasn't functioning like a mom that, you know, she wanted to be. So I said, well, that's your answer. Every time you go to work, you know, Monday through Friday in a moldy environment, that is going to cause problems. You're not, you know, from a treatment perspective, I can't help you. You have to, because every time you go into that environment, you're reinfecting your body every single time. So I can't do anything until you get out of that environment. So she went to her boss and she found out that she could, in fact, work remotely. And so we've got her on a mold program, and she's working remotely, and she's absolutely improving. So this is the thing of it, is that 70% of the homes in the United States have mold. So that's like 3 out of 4 homes. That is a lot. I had a couple of relatives. This is just over the last 2-3 years. I've had 2 relatives and 1 very, very good friend. Both of them, or all 3 of them, had purchased homes. They got into the homes and they started getting sick, and they went in and did another inspection, and they did mold testing, and mold was found in all 3 of these homes. So lawsuits and remediation ensued. 18% of the buildings have mold. The school buildings have mold. So these statistics, this is what we found online. Frankly, I don't really think that they're terribly correct, because I know that my grammar school, the school that I went to for junior high and high school, they were all built back in the 50s. And these are older schools, and those schools are still being used. So maybe not all schools have mold, but we are sending our kids to these environments. And I had a conversation with a lady, gosh, about 4 months ago, and she said that her kindergartner had started kindergarten. He was a very healthy boy, and then he got into school, and sure, he was getting, you know, colds and flus, and he had a cough, and she thought, okay, that's expected. He's in kindergarten. However, he continued to get worse. And I again asked her, is there any way that you think that he might have mold in that school, that where he's attending school? And she's like, you know, I bet that might be the problem. So she, in fact, did pull him out of that school, and his health improved. So these statistics, you really kind of have to go with, all right, number one, they look at a certain threshold. whenever they have a statistic like this, they're going, okay, if the toxic level is it hits this threshold, then that's what we're going to say is quote unquote toxic. But they might not be at quite that toxic level, but they still contain mold. 26% of the hospitals carry mold, and 45 million buildings in the United States also have, again, unhealthy mold levels. But you have to ask, well, what is an unhealthy mold level? Maybe it's just under that threshold. And worse yet, we have 7 million deaths that are attributed to mold per year in the United States. However, I would think that this is really quite a bit more, because when you have mold in the environment, it's going to cause certain symptoms, and then those symptoms are going to lead to a diagnosis. And God forbid someone does die from that diagnosis, when in reality, they're really not dying from that diagnosis. You have to look back further and say, what caused that diagnosis? What caused those symptoms? And oftentimes it will be mold. And we've all been exposed to mold. I know I was a lab rat, and I grew lots of different cultures when I was in school. So we've all grown different cultures in school and had those experiences. And what really is the question is how your body handles mold, okay? It's really, why is mold so debilitating to some people when it doesn't impact others? And it's just the way our bodies are. Some people can handle some things more than others. So what we want to look at is keeping that mold level at no mold level. And ultimately, we want to protect ourselves from the exposure and act upon any type of exposure, act upon that immediately. So the symptoms that mold can create, this isn't all of them, but these are some of them. And generally speaking, chronic fatigue is very, very high on that list. Chronic fatigue, sensitivity to chemicals and smells. So people who find themselves getting headaches or migraines. Oftentimes you might have like those air fresheners when you get into a car, or you go to a friend's house and they have those air fresheners or candles that have this heavy scents or the scents, and that bothers you. That's oftentimes an indication. Being very sensitive to chemicals, and also having car sickness or airplane sickness is another indicator. Mold also causes anxiety, depression, and difficulty sleeping. That is a big one. So it interrupts your sleep cycle. So today, we're going to be talking with a young lady who is going to tell us her story and her recovery about how it was with mold. So I want to welcome Nicole onto the program. Let me just go here, stop sharing. There we go. Okay, Nicole, welcome on.
Hi, Vicki. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, walk us through your story. Tell us what happened.
So back in 2001, I grew up in Las Vegas, and my husband had a job transfer to California. And I joke around all the time, like I knew nobody in California, and he was going to be working in the LA area, which is a huge area. Like if anybody's ever been to California, this is a big area. So my most important thing to me was I didn't really care what city I lived in. I just wanted to make sure my kids went to a great school district. I was pulling them out. I was having mom guilt, honestly. They were starting 7th grade, junior high, and high school, right? So I pulled them out of their homes. I just felt like, okay, I got to find the best area, the best house, the best whatever for them to live in. So I moved to a town called Valencia, California, and we rented a house for we rented a house for the first year. That was our goal. Let's rent for a year, get acclimated, and then we'll purchase. The house was super cute, super clean, close to the school, had, there was everything about this house that was charming. Great neighborhood, great school district that we were zoned for. So I thought everything was going to be hunky dory.
Sure.
Right. So little did I know that there was some toxic mold in the house, and the landlords did not know either. So within a few weeks, I developed this chronic cough. And by chronic cough, they first thought I had bronchitis. I did go to a doctor because it wasn't going away. And, they put me on antibiotics and they thought I had bronchitis. And I had this, it was creepy cough, deep cough. And I wasn't sleeping at night and just wasn't feeling well. And then all of a sudden, my kids started, my daughter who ran track, all of a sudden was wheezing and she couldn't breathe and she was having issues. And so I took her to a pediatrician and he's like, oh my goodness, she has asthma. And I was like, could it be just the pollen? Could it be this? Could it be that? And he's like, no, I definitely think she has asthma. And I thought that was kind of odd, all of a sudden being diagnosed with asthma while she, starting 7th grade. And then my son, well, he was last, actually. My husband was next. At work, he collapsed and they took him to the ER close to his work, and he was having respiratory issues. And they couldn't really find anything wrong with him. They didn't know, they assumed at that point he was crawling in roofs, like in ventilation and that kind of stuff. So they thought it was something environmental that he had picked up, and they sent him home, told him to rest for a couple of days and he'd be fine. And here I am, creepy cough. Now this has gone on for 6-8 weeks at this point with this cough. And my left eye was starting to turn purple. And so that was kind of a weird indicator. Like when I say purple, it was like the white of my eye was completely purple. And so I had gone back to the doctor a couple of times, still no answers. They just couldn't figure out what was going on with me, why I wasn't getting rid of this bronchitis. Right. And then my son ended up in the ER and he looked like the Michelin tire man. He blew up and he could hardly breathe. And he had hives on him that were like, when I say hives, they were like the size of baseballs. They were all over his body. We ended up in the emergency room. They gave him Benadryl. They did all the things, for an allergic reaction. And nobody had tied any of this together. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is my daughter had gone to a pediatrician. I was seeing a general practitioner. My husband had gone to the ER. My son had gone to a different ER. So, and everybody's symptoms were different. So there was no reason to think like, oh, is this something in our house? And as my eye got worse and worse and the cough got worse and worse and I wasn't sleeping, and they had me on some pretty strong, they don't even have those sleeping pills that they had me on. They were giving me Halcyon to try to sleep.
Wow.
Which they don't even make anymore, I don't think. It's not legal to prescribe anymore. I was on so many drugs, just trying to get my body to rest, and I couldn't rest. So there was a physician's assistant in the office, and she said to me, Nicole, you don't happen to have any water leaks or mold in your house, do you? Mold. And I was like, what? I said, my house is as clean as could be. I'm a Vegas girl. You guys, it's hot there. We don't have mold. We don't have moisture. Like there's no moisture. So mold needs moisture to grow usually. Right. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I was offended. Like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. So she was like, no. Do you have any water leaks in your house? Do you have any, like, like I'm talking about not mold, like from cleaning. And I was like, well, we have this water leak in the bathroom, and we can't, every day we have this puddle of water literally in the middle of our bathroom floor, and we cannot figure out where this water is coming from. And our landlords have sent plumbers out. They can't figure this out. Like nobody can figure out where this water is coming from. And I said, every morning I have to get up and I clean this. It's literally a puddle of water in the middle of my floor. And so she was like, oh my gosh, I think you've been exposed to mold. She says, you really need to talk to your landlord and see if they can do some mold testing in this house, or maybe you and your husband do some mold testing in this house. But if you have a water leak that's like that, I really think there might be some kind of mold in your walls or your environment. I had no idea what she was talking about. I mean, I was Googling. I was like, what the heck? Thank goodness
So this was how long ago?
it was in 2001. So
Okay.
there wasn't much information
No,
about molds at that point. So the fact that this PA, and the reason she had asked is I was telling her how devastated I was that my son was in the ER and had this allergic reaction. So, and she's like, wait, does anybody else in your family have anything? And I told her, and then she's like, oh my gosh, I think this is what it is. So it was really her insight. And so
right.
she sent me to a pulmonary doctor because I was so sick. And so, and the pulmonary doctor, I tell everybody he was like my angel. And when I say that, I don't mean that like he really, really, really saved my life. So, um, as I progressed and got worse and worse, they actually did a bronchoscopy on me to try to get this fluid that was building up in my lungs. That was their first thing because my left lung was just so full of fluid. And so they tested that fluid. Number one, to find out if I had cancer. That was the first thing that they were concerned about. Did I have cancer in my lungs?
Sure.
And number two, what was growing in there? And they were shocked to find that I had Stachybotrys growing in my lung. So here there was this mold, literally a black mold was growing in my lung. And they didn't know what to do. They literally didn't know what to do. They had me on antifungal medicines. They had me on, like, they didn't know what to do for me. Nobody
Right.
knew what to do. And so they just knew that this lung was just so filling up and filling up. So on my third bronchoscopy, my body was worn out. I think I was just, like I said, I wasn't sleeping. I was 24 hours a day. My left eye at this point looked like it was falling out of the socket. It was literally like you could see it like
Mhm.
fall. It was weird. It was, if I showed you pictures, you'd be like, oh my gosh.
That's okay.
Um, yeah. And so the third surgery, I didn't wake up.
Oh,
And so, and I had teenagers at home
yeah.
and, I was, it was let's just say being in a coma is a very interesting experience. Waking up is the experience is the waking up part is the experience. But when I did wake up, I asked my doctor a very serious question to me was, I have these kids at home and I have this mold growing in my lung, and how are we going to get it out? It's in my body and I have a life to live. I have things to do. I need to take care of my babies.
Mhm.
And especially as teenagers, that's when I think they need you, even sometimes more than when they're littles. And so he said to me, he said, well, this is what I know. He says, number one, he says, whatever your faith is, he says, I don't know what your faith is, but whatever your faith is, I need you to magnify that by 10. And
Yeah.
once you've done that, you need to magnify it by 100 because you have to believe that you are going to get better. And you have to have a higher power in your life. He says, I don't care if it's your cat or a rock or God or whoever you believe in, but you need to have faith and have a support system in that way. And he says, the second thing you need is me. And I'm not saying that to be cocky or to be godlike, but I've literally have been working. I have called every colleague I could think of across this country, trying to figure out how to get this out of your lung. And the most important thing is that you remember that you need to hire doctors that remember that they're practicing medicine because we
Yeah.
don't have all the answers. And he says, I'm going to bat for you here. Like every day I've been working on this. Every day it haunts me that you weren't waking up. The longer it went, the more scared I was for you and your family. So he really had a big heart. Um, and what great valuable information. Hire doctors that, you get to hire the doctor. And
Yeah.
that was good information to have, right? You get to hire your practitioners, your doctors, you know, just like your mechanic, you get to hire your mechanic, right? So, and we can fire them as well. We don't have to go back to that person if they're not working for us. So I think that was a very valuable lesson to me. And then the third thing he said is, you are not getting better in this hospital, and nothing I have done for you in this hospital has worked. So we need to look outside of this hospital and look for some holistic and some maybe Eastern medicine to get you better, because this isn't working. What we're doing isn't working. And at that point, I was like, what the heck is that? I'll do anything. What are you doing? And he said, well, I have found a doctor who's doing some breaking studies on hyperbaric chambers and mold. And he said, and he's agreed to see you. And he said, I have found a great nutritionist who really wants to work with you as well. And we're going to work with taking foods out of your body that could exacerbate this mold. And he said, and then my wife said, instead of sending you to physical therapy, because I was in bed for 4 months, that she would be willing to take you to yoga with her, and she'd pick you up, because I
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
driving, I wasn't walking. And he says, and I mean, at the time I was, in my 30s, and she was in her 60s, and he's like, she'll pick you up and she'll take you to yoga. And I think that would be so much better for you than going to physical therapy, because it will be that mind and body connection. So those are the things that I did. We tried a couple other things. We tried acupuncture. There was all kinds of things that we tried along the way, holistic things. But those were the things that really worked the most. And I love that he was so open to, this isn't working, so we need to do this. Like I said, he was my angel,
Yeah.
so. And he passed away a few years ago. We did become very dear friends, because his wife really took me under his wing, and so did he. And everything we did, now mind you, this was over 20 years ago, I did get better.
Mhm.
All taking out the food out, getting outside, breathing. The hyperbaric chamber, I believe, really made a huge impact on me, and taking foods out. And for 20 years, I still had symptoms. The mold had triggered my autoimmune symptoms. So now I was facing autoimmune symptoms on a daily basis
Right.
over 20 years. And so it wasn't until I got into the functional medicine realm of things. And here's what's crazy. I opened up my own wellness center eventually. I became a nutritionist. I opened up my own wellness center. I was working as a health coach. I was going through all these steps. I was working with my own clients, but I never thought 20 years later that I could still have mold that was affecting my body.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing, because all of a sudden I was like, wait, what? Wait, what? 20 years, could this really? So I actually went on to an autoimmune protocol.
So
with
what foods did you find that would exacerbated your condition?
foods were really interesting. So most people go, oh, so you took out mushrooms? They think of fungus
Yeah,
was
of
the first
course.
thing. No, that wasn't some of them. So she had done so much research. And so what she had found is foods that that are can be highly acceptable, like exposed to mold. So things like apples. Apples mold very easily. So apples, anything with vinegar, apples, tomatoes. It's a really interesting list of things that we took out, because she had done this study. So it was interesting that he had found these people that were like studying mold. So apples were a big thing, and vinegar. So there's vinegar in so many things,
Yes.
you don't
Salad
realize
dressings.
every salad dressing, every condiment has vinegar in it. So we took out vinegar, and we took
Also
out.
hard cheeses, I would say aged cheeses like Gorgonzola, blue cheese,
Mhm.
Roquefort.
Yeah, so I was put on a pretty restrictive diet at that point. And then slowly, as I got better, I eventually added those foods back in, until I started dealing with my autoimmune symptoms. And then I went on an autoimmune protocol, and I took foods out. And all of a sudden, I didn't have this cough that I had had for 20 years. I was on supplements that were actually, I was working in the functional world on supplements that um, were really to help with my autoimmune symptoms. But all of a sudden, those went away. And then all of a sudden, like the cough that I had had for 20 years went away. I had had a cough for 20 years, you guys. So, and it wasn't like it wasn't that creepy cough, but it was after I'd eat, it was this phlegmy, deep cough for a few minutes every time I ate. So, and I was just so used to having this. Once I went through a protocol, which
Right,
I thought was working on my autoimmune things, all of a sudden I had none of that left. And to eat and not cough was such a big win
right.
that, and all my autoimmune things went away. So it's interesting that that mold is what triggered the symptoms, and I lived like this for over 20 years. Now I have no more joint pain. I have no more brain fog. I have no more cough. Um, I run on my treadmill. I've lost a ton of weight, which was just the bonus, because I was heavy and I wasn't losing the weight. So I lost the
Do you
weight.
mind if we show the pictures?
Yeah, you can show them.
Okay, so,
They're ugly.
well, they tell a story.
They tell a story.
They tell a story. So
Yeah.
let's go back to this. Can you see that?
Yeah, there's your PowerPoint.
Okay, and we're just gonna um let me get to this.
Are they in your PowerPoint?
Yeah. So from the current slide, there you are.
There you go. Oh
So
yeah,
there you are.
there I am. So
This,
that was the picture on the left
yeah,
was at my stepson's college graduation.
okay.
And I was so inflamed. This is how I looked, you guys, for 20 years.
It's a lot of
20 years.
inflammation. Yeah,
A lot of inflammation. And that day, I could barely brush my hair. So when you're sick, right? Like
yeah.
when you're sick, everything is an effort. And you can see how swollen my ankles were. I could not, of course, I had shoes that I had brought, not those little slippers, and I could not fit into my shoes. My feet would not fit into my shoes. And of course, of course, this mama was going to be there no matter what. And so I just put on these little slippers
Slippers.
that I wear, just so I could be there thinking nobody's going to be looking at my feet, right? I have to
True.
be there. And so as a mom, you just do what you do as a mom, whether I love my stepkids. I call them my bonus kids.
Absolutely.
I got extras. And so there I was, barely hairbrushed, couldn't get into my shoes, but
And then
darn
over,
it, I wasn't gonna miss that day for
yeah, and over
anything.
here, you look so like
So picture on the
much
right
better.
is me now. And you
Yeah.
can see this is
You-
really me. My hair is not as bright and shiny today. My hair appointment is tonight, so tomorrow it will look just like that. But this is me, and I'm healthy, and I'm almost 60 years old, and my kids are grown, and I'm a grandma, and I play on the floor with my grandkids, and I run around, and I play pickleball, and I have a life. And if it wasn't for the correct supplements, if it wasn't for meeting the right people and going down that functional world, I probably would have been that person on the left for another 20 years.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad when I see it. It really cheers me up. It makes me sad because Dr. Thompson did everything he could for me, everything that he could think of that was possible. And he got me 80% better, which was awesome for being there were people who were dying from mold and people just didn't know they had mold exposure. So here I am. I was grateful every day that I was alive. Like wasn't always in the best shape, but I was alive and I was there for my
Absolutely.
kids. And so I tell you what, I feel like I always tell people, I don't think I look 60 yet. And I don't think I act like I'm 60 yet. Um, but to regain my health and be able to share that with other people, like yourselves that are on here, what an impact that has had on my life and my family's life.
Yeah. And this stuff, it works. I mean, you had to leave your toxic environment.
I did.
And then after years and years of saying, something is wrong, it's not right, you had that triggering moment where you just wanted to make that change, not only for yourself, but for your kids and your grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I was so tired of not feeling well. Not feeling well is not a good place to be,
yeah,
right? And getting through each day. And here I was, working as a nutritionist and owning a wellness center. And then there was that part of me that felt like a hypocrite. Like, who am I to help other people? But I felt like I needed to get out there and help. Like, there was things. Well, now I've learned even more and more and more. And what what Vicky's going to tell you today, listen, because it makes such a big impact. Like, that happened in such a short period of time, you guys.
yeah,
Those two pictures are only it's about 18 months apart. And what a huge, huge
wow,
impact.
that
Yeah.
is. So if you're struggling with these illnesses or have been sick or you've been sick for a while, we're here to help because this is why we do these workshops, because we want to make sure that you guys just experience the best of life and you regain your health and you're not having to suffer with these ailments. Because that's what we're told to do. I mean, it just drives me crazy. You watch television and they have these commercials and they say, oh, come on, just all you have to do is take this injection. And we've just been trained to think that that's what we need to do. There's a reason why your body's telling you something and you have to listen to it. Look at Nicole. She's a walking testimonial of going from a coma to being healthy and healing. And it's a journey, but you guys, it's a journey that has to be taken because you just don't want to suffer for the rest of your life.
I think what's exciting, Vicky, is that there's so much now. There is testing, like the test that you're talking about and you're going to tell your people about. Like, I wish that I had this available to me in
Yeah.
2001. I wish I had this available to me in 2010 and in 2020, right? So there, we're learning more and more and more every single day. And the thing is, if you guys have been exposed to whether it's heavy metals or mold or mycotoxins, it's really the mycotoxins that hurt your body. But if you've been exposed, the great thing is now we have solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's answers where we were searching, like, digging the bottom of the barrel
Yeah.
20 years ago. And there's so many doctors, they just don't know. Like, they don't even know what the mold symptoms were. To this day, I never asked that PA how she knew about toxic mold because I switched doctor's offices.
Oh, yeah.
And I never got the opportunity to actually ask her. She actually moved. I had gone back and to thank her, and she had moved to another state. So I never actually even got to thank her. So I always send those good vibes out to her because she was
Yeah.
a brilliant person to think, well, maybe this is something environmental. Maybe this really is something. And when we did have that house tested, when the people came and tested it, they did say it was the highest black mold count they had ever seen in a home.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
Scary.
it can destroy your life. Like, we literally lost most of our belongings.
Sure.
You have to give it everything that you own, basically, that can breathe. If it's something hard and if it's a glass, if it's something like this, it can be cleaned. If
Sure.
it's something like a piece of paper will hold on to the mold. So I would tell people it was like having a fire without having a fire. Like, I
Exactly.
had to give up my belongings. And so not only is there so much that goes on physically, there's that emotional component as well. And so now there's a lot of mold remediators that can come in and do things, but it's very pricey. And so, having your home, I mean, I hear people 40, 50, 60, $70,000 that go
Not
into mold
uncommon.
remediation. It's not uncommon at all.
No.
And so, and then your health suffers and suffers because a lot of doctors just don't have the answers. So I was fortunate enough to have people in my corner that were fighting for me. But Vicky's one of those people. She will fight for you and she will
Oh,
definitely help you
absolutely.
overcome mold exposure.
So let's talk about mold a little bit more. Um, there's $1.4 billion spent in unknown illnesses. Mold exposure can trigger all of these health concerns, and we just don't know what it could be. There's billions of dollars that are spent managing autoimmune diseases. And probably one of the greatest problems that people run into are gastrointestinal problems. Those oftentimes, are right off the bat. When people start experiencing that, you got to really ask, what's going on? So like Nicole said, that Western medicine really didn't have a complete solution for her because they don't treat it the same way that functional medicine does. We have to like look at it from a different viewpoint. So the last 20 years, we've really honed in. They've got the testing now. These are new tests that are coming out, and also the supplements that we're using now. They really, really go in and clean out what is there. So let's talk about what mold is and what is causing the problems. It's actually mycotoxins. So mold is a living organism, and the mycotoxin is what is producing those products. Okay, the mycotoxin. And when that mycotoxin gets released into the air, we breathe it in. And the mycotoxins are what really wreak havoc with our bodies. It's in the air we breathe. It's all, and like Nicole said, it gets into your fabrics, it gets into your bedding, it gets into your curtains, it gets into any rugs or anything you have. And like she said, it's like you have a fire without a fire to get rid of it. So those toxins destroy and play havoc with our bodies. So the test that we're talking about today identifies not only the specific mycotoxins, but also the load that's in your body. So it tells us how much of those mycotoxins are in your body. So I want to be very clear. There's two different types of tests, mold tests. The one that Nicole talked about that was in her home, that is called an ERMI test. ERMI test. That tests your environment. So that would be the people come out, they test the air, and they figure out how much mold is in your environment, or how many mycotoxins and the load of mycotoxins in the environment. Then the test that we're going to dive into is your internal environment, what's going on inside your body. And this tests the mycotoxins in your body. So again, if Nicole had this test 20 years ago, I mean, it would have been crazy to see the results that she would have, okay? Unfortunately, they didn't have this test 20 years ago. So this test actually has 3 parts. It says here 2 parts, but I think it has more like 3 parts. It has the mycotoxins, which is how much mold is hanging out in your body. And then it also has heavy metals. But in the heavy metal portion of the test, it has environmental toxins. So it has mycotoxins, the heavy metals, and the environmental toxins. One thing I want you guys to just be aware of is that there's a lot of companies out there, they say that they test for these things. I have a colleague like Nicole, another colleague that I work with. She was doing hair testing, and she was taking that hair. She said, you know what, I need to really find out if this is efficacious. So she took a hair sample, she sent it to like 3 different labs, and she was not getting the same answer at each of those labs. So if you have a sample, you send it to a lab, and you send it to another lab, and you send it to a 3rd lab, all 3 of those labs should come back with the same answer saying, it has this, 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 and this. But she was getting different data back. So she finally said, you know what, they're no good. They suck. So I just want you to be aware of that, because you might see on Facebook or other places that you can get a $99 heavy metal test or, mycotoxin test. I just want you to understand that they're really not efficacious. The urine sample test, that is what you need. And that's what this test is that we're going to go over. So I'm a firm believer that if you have a clean diet, you try and have as minimal toxins around you, environmental toxins and things like that. But to be honest with you, these things are everywhere. Let me tell you my story, because what happened to me, it wasn't with mold, but it was with a heavy metal. Before my daughter was born, I noticed that I wasn't really sleeping very well. And then after she was born, because I was a new mom, I was breastfeeding, I wasn't sleeping as deeply. And I thought, okay, it was that. But a few years went by and I'm like, something is not right. And then I started to notice some very, very strange symptoms. I started to get anxious. I had this symptom of where I would wake up at 4 a.m. and I could not shut my mind down. I just had this mind chatter and songs would get stuck in my head. And I was just like, this is not right. And so being a chiropractor, I was able to lay down on my tables at lunchtime and take a nap, which helped. And I also, I did all the normal stuff. I did blood work. I did all my hormones. I did my thyroid panels, all the panels, and they all came back perfect. So I then said, okay, what else could it be? And I tried, honestly, I really did try a lot of different things. And it wasn't until I did a detox program that I felt better. I was about 3 weeks into a detox program and I started sleeping better. My mind, it was calmer. And I did a bunch of research. I'm like, there's something wrong with me and I need to find out what it was. So I did a bunch of research and I found a urine test that would measure the load of heavy metals that I was excreting out of my system. And I said, okay, well, I'll try that. Thinking, another thing to try, but I will try it because I had to find an answer. When that test came back, I'm going to show you not my test, but how these tests are, how they're portrayed. How they're portrayed is, it has like a bar, and the toxin would be like in a green area or a yellow area or a red area. Well, my bar went all the way across the page. It went to the very end. So I had this very, very high level of aluminum in my body. And aluminum, where do you get that from? But there were other heavy metals too. I had cadmium, lead, arsenic, mercury, which I had dental fillings that were mercury, which I took out. But these things are everywhere. There were radioactive isotopes. So the point is, we don't realize that we have these toxins in our body and they're around us all the time. They're in the air that we breathe, the food we eat, the skincare we use, the cosmetics we use. It's in all of them. And what we have to do is we have to eliminate that toxic load from our body. That's the biggest goal, is to keep that toxic load as low as possible. So we're going to hop into this lady here. She is a 50-year-old chronic fatigue. That was her main problem. Debilitating chronic fatigue. I mean, she could hardly even, get out of bed. And it had been going on for almost a decade. So she came to me about a year ago. She did a gut program with me, a Heal My Gut program. And she really had some great results, but she still wasn't quite there yet. So we knew we were on the right track, but we needed to go deeper. And we started communicating back and forth. And I realized that she lived out in this rural farming community in a very, very old farmhouse. So all her blood work again was normal. And so I'm thinking, all right, normal blood work, everything looks good, but we have all these problems. So this is what I'm going to tell you. I teach other classes with the different panels, the 5 markers of the CBC and lipid panel and thyroid panel. If those are all normal, but you continue to have these types of debilitating chronic fatigue, GI problems, whatever it is, then I always suspect mold or heavy metals. It has to be something the body is not healing. Our bodies are made to heal. We have that innate intelligence and we should be healing. So there's something that's interfering with that healing process, be it a infection, or in this lady's case, it turned out to be these mycotoxins and also BPA. She's got both of them. So like I said, this test, it measures mycotoxins here. It has the heavy metals, and it also has the environmental toxins. And as you can see, she's kind of off the chart here on BPA, which is plastic. Basically, that's what it is. And that's interfering with her healing process, and that's interfering with her life. And also the microtoxin of dihydrocystanone. I don't know if I can say that right, but that's what it is. So that is here, dihydrocystanone. And that is in the red. And then we have BPA, which is a environmental toxin, and that's literally off the chart. In the 75th to 95th percentile, so these would be things in the yellow zone. OTA, which is a mycotoxin, and then bismuth, mercury. She has mercury fillings. She's having those removed. Platinum, glyphosate, very highly controversial because glyphosate is sprayed all over our crops, and then we eat those crops, and it does devastating things to our body. And then PERC, which it's in the environment, but it's also what was that? Fuel, military fuel, jet fuel, that sort of stuff, but it's also in fertilizer. She lives in a farming community, so this very well could be where she's getting that. So again, this is a urine test. It's not a blood test. So what we're measuring is the amount of toxins that your body is releasing. This is a different way to look at it. We've got the dihydroxycitronone here, and then the OTA and the creatinine levels. This is the mycotoxins that are tested. So she's got a couple of here that are, definitely in the red, one in the yellow, but a couple that are approaching yellow. So depending on what the toxic load is, this is how it's portrayed. And again, like I said, mine was like her BPA, it's all the way across the page. This is the heavy metals that are tested: aluminum, arsenic, cadmium, mercury, lead, cesium, that's a isotope, uranium, an isotope, bismuth, not sure what that is, but she's got that in the yellow range. And then environmental toxins. BPA is what's causing her the most problems, which is plastics. Those plastics. And the glyphosate and the PRC is also in that middle range. Lot of things. So how do we handle this? Like Nicole, you have to remove yourself from that environment. You have to, God forbid, do a remediation or leave wherever you're living if you're renting, or if, like I talked about earlier, the girl who she was working in a moldy environment, so she was able to work from home. So that's really, you have to leave that environment because there is no way that you can heal unless you leave it. A detox diet is also needed because you need to bring that level of inflammation down, and you have to figure out what is triggering your responses. First of all, those foods like Nicole talked about, there's foods that are indicative of being very holding mold and having mold in them, and really causing that reaction. And then having this, the professional grade supplements to help remove those toxins out of your body. So these are supplements that we use that are incredible. They flush those toxins out of the body. We pull them out. How our programs work is that we want to first prepare your body the first month. So when Nicole went through her process, it took her, like she said, like a year, 18 months to a year. And then for me, when I did my program, I was on the products for 9 months. And I still go back and do a detox like every couple of years, because I do not want those products, I don't want those toxins in my body. I want to keep that toxic load down. So how we do that is the first month, we've been able to condense this down into a 90-day program, and we prepare the body the first month to be able to drain those toxins, to get them out of the body first. So you have to open the elimination pathways, and then we want to also help the cells and the systems of your body. You have to support them so they have the energy to even get rid of this stuff, that you have the energy to heal. The second part of the program is the second month, which is where we start to pull these microtoxins and heavy metals out of your body. So you're actually pulling them out. And because you've done the groundwork, you do not, in month 1, you do not have to worry about having reactions and having problems with that. So this is a very, very simplified, explanation, but this is what works. You have to prepare the body first, then after that, you purify it. And then once those heavy metals and those mycotoxins are out of your body, then you have to revamp. You have to replenish and restore those key nutritional systems of your body, the gut, the cellular health, and you want to build up the body so that it will not have this happen to it again. You do not want a reoccurrence. All right. So we have an absolutely fabulous 90-day program. All the products are shipped directly to your door. There are 3 months of professionally grade supplements. We guide you through it. We have a guide that tells you when to do it, how to do it, why you're going to do it. In fact, it even this is this picture of what the boxes look like. So you have a box for month 1, month 2, and month 3, and you simply pull these packets out for AM and PM. And then there's the guide up here. Has question and answers in it. It has a survey that you take before you start the program, and it's the same survey after you're done with the program, so you can compare how your symptoms have just dropped off. We don't want you to just be left alone with this product, with this process, because you're going to need support. So we have a Facebook group to support you through this healing journey. in the Facebook group. It's there for you to ask questions. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to teach other panels so you can learn what your blood work says, what it means. We'll go in there and do environmental day where we pull out all of the environmental toxins. So different support to help you in your healing progress. And then we have the mold detox bundle. I mean, this is actually Nicole's bundle, and it's amazing. It has recipes, shopping lists, snack guides, and a whole bunch more. So it is an incredible, incredible bundle. So who needs this? It's anybody who's looking to get their life back. Anyone who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, okay? So with this program, you will have more mental clarity. You're going to sleep better. It's going to alleviate joint pain. It is an amazing, amazing product line. And we want you to be excited about life because you want to love what you're doing and love the new version of you. And with this, it is an incredible program that allows you to do that. So I have two different payment options. You can save $300 with a one-time payment of $1,800. And I set this price point so everyone can join and experience better health in 90 days. So this is for fast, if you want to get this done fast, this will do it. And I'm giving you this price because I want you guys to have more energy. I want you to have the availability to not have to take a nap in the afternoon or not have to drink coffee or one of those energy drinks just to get through the day. So I'm offering this price right now because I really, really want you guys to be your ultimate best. For those of you that $1,800 might be a challenge, I'm offering 3 payments of $700. So what you can do is go to mold.precisebloodanalysis.com. And at the very bottom of the page, there's an option. It has the My Calendly link. So if you have any questions, I'm going to open this up for questions in just a few minutes. But if you've got to, jump off, you can always go to that Calendly link and book an appointment with you. I'll answer any questions you have. I just want you guys to understand that I don't want money to be a factor. I want you guys to get on board with this program because it's really, really easy and everyone can afford it. That's why I set it at this low price point. So if you guys have any questions out there for the next, 20 minutes or so, you can hop on. Let me shut this sharing screen down and pop on over. And we'll just go ahead and open this to questions. Let me turn the recording off.